Hi, students in Drama 2366. This is Amberly Tanner coming to you from the quarantine zone. I thought that we'd start today by looking at your final project. So some of you have asked where this project is located, and it's going to be housed here under lessons and modules. And then I just figured that it'd be the best place that once you've finished all the course content, when you're here in module number 8, that you would just go on to the next thing once you're finished and look at what we have for you in the final project. So some of you have written me and asked about the there was previously but now altered a section in here. I work with 2 other professors here at TCC, and this is my course that I built, and they were working with it and tinkering to make a class based off of this. And so somebody had altered it. It used to say that this was independent and that you could work in groups, and that you could work in groups because you're filming and you need subjects. And sometimes what would happen with students was they would be here living possibly somewhere else away from their family and friends, or living here locally and away from family and friends, and not have actors or talent to work with. So keep in mind, we are in this shelter in place quarantine type of situation right now. So I use that word respectfully because I know that has affected many of us and our lifestyle, but more importantly, people in our lives are affected by this, and their employment, and so many different things as this ripple effect of the shelter in place. But with that comes that you could be in your apartment sheltering in place by yourself, or you could be sheltering in place with your family in that event that you would have people there to be your talent that you could solicit to work on this project with you. However, you may find yourself in that other circumstance where it's just you, or maybe you and a roommate, and your roommate works and they're not somebody who really wants to be captured on film. So with that said, you can get creative. Like, there are people who have done all different kinds of things that have dressed up people who didn't want to be in film. They've captured them in weird and disturbing shadowing angles that have been kind of mysterious for their particular movie that they decided to film. So there's lots of different things that you can do to address that if you only have one actor that's willing to work with you. You can also work with pets, but some of you already found in the cinematography project that can be a challenge because they don't always want to do what you want them to do. And then you can also have seen people do stop animation, where they're using little figures and things to do the stop animation. I've also seen students use dolls, toys, and inanimate objects, like I've mentioned in the previous video when I told you that you could use some of those things for your cinematography project. So that's definitely something you can do. So let's jump in. So this is basically, the purpose of this is to basically synthesize all the things that you've learned in the class. So you're taking all those modules 1 through 8, and really putting them to work in terms of, what do you know now? What genre do you want to work in? What angles do you want to, what interests you in terms of like your perspective? Like, now that you've watched some films, who do you align yourself stylistically with in terms of the design, the cinematography, the look, the feel? There's going to be very different thing that you'd be looking at from a directorial perspective from a Martin Scorsese film to, say, a Quentin Tarantino film. They're going to be doing different things and different objectives. They have a very distinctive look that is identifiable. So you're going to want to think about how we use these tasks to create a storyboard, which is the same thing as the cinematography project. The storyboard is basically the sequencing. Like, what is it going to look like from slide to slide to slide, from this scene to this next scene to the next scene? And what I've had students do when they're in the storyboard function is you can either do it in an actual pictures where people have taken stills of their video and captured it and labeled what was happening. Sometimes students have actually just hand drawn and sectioned off in squares so that it's a storyboard. That means this part of the story, kind of like a comic book, if you will, like where there's one scene here captured by another scene and another scene. And I'll put some samples up for you. I didn't want to bring up samples right now just because I have to be able to control the names of the students, if you will. So I wanted to be able to show you some of those things and try to remove the ownership of who those belong to so that we're not sharing their work. Some of them that published on YouTube, I'll show the videos of their work because they published on YouTube. So that's not something that I have to worry about. But if you look at this, it's sectioned into multiple parts. So this first part is going to be the script. So let's look at this. So if you look at your project guidelines, then the script is basically, it has a small portion of the grade. It's just what were the actors saying. So if you wanted to kind of play it out, improv it out, and see what they said, and then type down a script based on those things. If you want to really think about it and have it very specific, if the people you're working with or you're working with objects and you'll be doing the voices, then obviously you'll want it more scripted. The scene descriptions that include the sets, the costumes, the sound, and the information pertinent to the environment. If we can't tell what's happening with your storyboard, then you would want to texturize that by having some of these same descriptions on the storyboard as you would in your actual script. So tell us like that they're outside in Montana on the ranch, and you're giving us some of these descriptions of what the set, maybe it's in 1917, maybe it's in 2082. So you would want to give us some of that texturizing so we know where we are and what we're looking at, and then the shot outline. So what will happen, what shots will be in this series, and then the next one, what shots will be there. The paper, you're going to want to wait till you're finished with the project to do filming so that you can talk about this whole process as a complete and entirety, as an experience, if you will. So what did it look like? What did it feel like? How did you experience it? It talks briefly about the genre, discuss your film challenges, your casting choices. Some of those things you may have to elaborate more on because there may not be as much there. Discuss your sound choices, discuss the greatest challenge. These are all, as you hear me reading them, very opinion based. So they're very subjective. Everybody will have a different story. Most of you will have very challenging stories depending on if you're working with your kids, from if you're working with your dog. It's just usually students retelling some of the things that they went through. Sometimes they were planning on doing something outside. They had the scene in mind they wanted to shoot, but then it rained, or it's too cold, or it hadn't dried up yet, or they wanted sun in this, or they wanted to catch it at sundown, and some of those challenges that you start to see when you become a short filmmaker. And so you're talking about some of the things that in this process that you use. So I want to hear you use the language of the course. I want to hear you talk about the shots and the scenes and some of the devices that you've learned about throughout these modules. And that would be important. Paper needs to be 3 pages in the MLA format, that if you're going to cite anything, that you've cited that for us so that we can see that in your paper. And then the storyboard is essentially what you did with your cinematography project. It will have a separate place for you to submit this. And once you get it done, you can go ahead and submit. And then you're looking at the type of, in your film, what kinds of shots. So we need to have an establishing shot, the full or long shot, a medium shot, a close-up shot, an extreme close-up shot, an over-the-shoulder and reverse shot. And remember, you really want to set up those shots to look specifically on that last one, the over-the-shoulder, and then the reverse of it should look really the same. So we should see, if I'm looking straight over my shoulder now, that I'm really going to see the perspective, the alternating perspective from when I transpose the shot. The angles that you want, the bird's eye, the high, the eye level, the low, the worm's eye, and the Dutch angle. So in the cinematography project, you didn't have to use all of these. You could only use some of them. Some of you used all of them. Some of you did not. So these will be some new ones that you'll be exploring. The pan, the tilt, and the tracking shot. So you're going to get some movement. So we want to see that camera move. And I know we're working with with your iPhone, and so that's possibly the camera that you had to work with, but you can still track the motion, and you can do the pan and the tilt and the tracking shot with this. You don't want your film to be any longer than 5 minutes and no shorter than 3 minutes. So make sure when you're planning out the script of it that you know that those are your parameters. Okay, and then in editing, you want to use some of these editing devices. So we want a jump cut. We want to see a sequence shot. We want to see a dissolve, a match cut, the crossing cut, the fade in or out, a wipe, and then the iris out. So we want to see some of these things just so that I can know that you know how to do some of these editing techniques. And then the spoken language, at least 2 sound effects, and then underscore with music, one part of your film. Keep in mind that you want to adhere to copyright laws. So if you use a popular form of music, you can only use 30-second cut of that music that you've purchased on, say, your iTunes or something like that. We can't have anybody else's music. Now, there's free domain music, so a lot of times you'll see in some people's movies when they need to use longer than 30 seconds, they'll use the public domain or free domain music, and that's applicable to anybody, and there's no copyright on it, so when you post these on YouTube, there won't be any problem of viewing. In our discussion board presentation, you will, as soon as you're finished with the film, you'll mount that film into the discussion board. That way people will have enough time as we're narrowing down those last few days of class. And so the sooner that you get yours finished and up, the longer people have to comment on it. And so yours would definitely be seen by more of your classmates. The later you are on that date when you press time-wise, and that's why I eliminated the film critique, was to give you guys some extra time, some extra pad built in, so that right now all you have to do is take the reading quiz, which some of you have already taken, and then you have to work on your final. So you have that freedom. Now, if you would like to do the film critique, I think it's an awesome project to look and evaluate the contrast compare of a documentary to a film over the same topic is really a cool perspective that you could gain. I think it does a lot for you in terms of building and developing your eye, but I just decided at this time people are really overloaded and stressed and sharing their computers with their children and teaching classroom from home themselves, and there just isn't enough time in the day for y'all to accomplish some of the things you needed to. So I was trying to provide a breather, and since I hadn't had the opportunity to do that yet for you. So keep in mind, those are the things we're looking for, and I know that this is the breakdown here of the points. Your script's just 50 points. You have to have a script to work with it. The storyboard you're going to build out. And again, you can sketch that out. You can just take still shots of your film. And that's what a lot of people use. That saves them time. And then the film with the shots is 275 points, including that sound is 25. And the paper is 125 points. So keep in mind that there's a lot of points. So some of you who are a little bit behind are not as happy overall with where the course has led you. You've been through a lot this semester, personally and professionally and educationally. So with those challenges, this might be a place for you to gain back the point. So if you have any questions, make sure that you just email me and let me know. But keep in mind that there are places for you to submit when you come here. This is going to be where you'll include your script at the top or at the very bottom of your paper, and then your paper will be here. You'll put that in this place here for me, and then you'll have a place to put your storyboard, and the storyboard goes along with the final part 2. So final part 1, when you look at the dates on your calendar, is going to be for the paper and the script that are together, and final part 2 is the submission of your film and your storyboard. Keep in mind, please don't forget to post in the discussion board and also submit your work here, because I need to have your work submitted here in order for me. That's where I place the grade. So it's important that there's a film there when I go to look. So I thank you guys so much, and I hope that this has been informative and helpful. Keep in mind on that paper, it's really all your subjective perspective. And the more that you tell me, the more detailed you are, the more informative you are, and showing the diligence and the vocabulary of our course and shared time together is really important. I wish you all well, and I hope that you're keeping safe and staying in your shelter in place so that we can knock out this virus. Take care.